Thank you so much. My name is Abdul Shakur Omain. I work with Dabong FM in Tamale. Your Excellency, my question is, the teacher and nursing allowances increases the expenses of the public purse. As an economist, don't you think it is prudent for us to scrap it? Especially so you are now talking of an upgrade instead of a reset. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me hear from Salma. Salma, please go ahead. Please give the microphone to Salma.
Good evening, Your Excellency, and thanks for the opportunity. My name is Salma Ahmed of ICRA Radio. Your Excellency, having advocated for the creation of the Zongo Development Fund, how impactful has it been to the Zongo and the inner cities? Thank you.
Umar Sanda from City.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mr. Vice President. I have a message from your in-laws, the Fulani people. They say I should tell you that, and remind you rather, that they are still being discriminated against when it comes to obtaining national ID cards, the passport, and so on. So kindly work on the discrimination part for them. My question, your critics, mostly the NDC, they say that the economy has overused, so you run away to digitalization. What is your response to such a criticism? Thank you so much.
Anybody from Savannah region? Savannah is there. Please give the microphone to the gentleman from Savannah.
Thank you. Your Excellency, my name is Nongya Isaac Nongya from Joy Savannah region. You did a lot of justice to the policies you put under agriculture, but one fundamental key on the agri-value chain, which is the seed industry, is crushing to collapse. I will speak. The local seed industry is very, very weak to the extent that seed growers are out of business. The Tamale warehouse, one warehouse, there are a lot of seeds that are packed there with a market. Sorry.
Your question, please.
My question is, are you going to rescue the agricultural value chain by revamping this local seed industry and then giving quota of supply of these seeds to the planning for food or job? Because at the moment, they only buy rice in the neglect of maize, soya, and what have you. Thank you.
Let's hear from Frema Edunyame from Channel 1, and then we'll come to Central Region. So let's hear from Frema, we'll come to Central Region.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, it is quite clear that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is not the visionary for the current NPP administration. But as rightly admitted, you bear some collective responsibility for the outcomes of government's efforts, either successes or failures. Mr. Vice President, can you state 2 failures of your current administration which you seek to correct? And how do you intend to do this differently should you become the president? Thank you.
Thank you. Central Region.
Your Excellency, my name is Kofi Kunedu from ATL-FM UCC Cape Coast. I guess Cape Coast Airport promised in 2020 is part of the 20% unfulfilled. Fast forward, you have aligned in your 2024 manifesto. It means it is there in your heart. What is the overriding consideration of having an airport in Cape Coast and, for that matter, Central Region? Thank you.
Please, let me hear from Larry Dugwe. Please give the microphone to Larry. And then afterwards, we'll come to Ashanti Region, Mr. Kwame Dinkra. Let's take a few more. Give the microphone to Mr. Kwame Dinkra. His hand has been up for a bit now. Please. I see a lot of hands. We'll take as many as we can. Please be very crisp with the questions.
Okay. Your Excellency, I want an assurance. I recall the President first 100 days in office. I drew his attention to a vision of President John Ajikun Kufuor to the effect that he will fix the inner ring road of Kumasi to restore the Garden City glory. In fact, we saw the Asqua interchange, the overhead constructed. We saw improvement in the Sofolai interchange. Now we have seen major constructions at the Swami interchange. But we have left with Santasi roundabout interchange, Ahonjo roundabout interchange, Aulaga Junction interchange, and airport roundabout interchange to fully complete the inner ring road of the Garden City. I want assurance from you to the people of Kumasi, whether indeed in your reign as the President of the Republic, you will fully complete the inner ring road of the Garden City. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see Andy. Please give the microphone to Andy and Larry. They must ask questions. Please hand the microphone over to Andy and Larry, wherever they are. I see them here, I see them here. Oh. Yes, hello. Please hand the microphone over to them. Thank you. Andy, please join your brother. Please come forward. Go ahead.
Mr. Vice President, I'm from Akachi in the Volta region. Andy is from Jachi, somewhere in Kumasi. So we can't be we can't be brothers. But by the way, these days it's very difficult to hear the MPP talking about the fight against corruption. I don't know whether that has been captured in the manifesto. If it has, can you throw a little light on it for us, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You've been touted as one with integrity. And we know integrity is anchored on trust. On your campaign tour, you're making promises. In some instances, a renewal of those you've made in the past. Thankfully, you've been reminded of one you made in 2016 to relieve Ghanaians of the suffering. 7 years down the line, there is still suffering. This time around, excruciating hardship. You are appealing to Ghanaians to promote you to the higher office of the land. Respectfully, do you think you should be trusted with a mandate that you are, or you have what it takes to relieve Ghanaians of what they are going through? Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. So basically the question is that between Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and former President Mahama, who should a Ghanaian voter trust? He would respond to it. Please give the microphone to Nana Okatechi Afrifa. Okay, it's with Evans. So let Evans come then. Okatechi will come then. Uncle Ebukwansa will come.
Okay. My name is Evans Benson. I work with Joy News. On page 29 of your manifesto, you promise to protect Ghanaian cultural values. My question to you is, as president, will you sign the promotion of Ghanaian sexual rights and family values bill?
Thank you. Okatechi, I think we've taken more than the 6 at this point. Uncle Ebukwansa, please let us hear from Okatechi if I come to Uncle Ebukwansa.
Good evening, Your Excellency. As usual, I would like to ask my question in three. Say how Janansi as would the Ajamo Pambo, ti mebusa no twi. Your Excellency, awie ya na me free a year asenkragwa and in importance eba. Na me koi with Madam for no so ye morning show of a Kesman Kwame Apiakubi. Ekodu hono niema na ekoso ne bi. Your Excellency, it is heart wrenching. Semino ka say tano nsuo a eda ho esutɔbrɛ metimi agina the middle of the tano nsuo na manante so do menye Yesu Kristo. That is how bad the destruction of our waters have become. Enra, we have to turn ourselves into citizen vigilantes to arrest some Chinese people and send them to the police station on this matter. Besides that, Achimota Forest, Yanyanti say the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources said year in, year out, a certain Owu family, Ayaji Asasi free on 1927, Yanchia Omoka, enti omo DB Koma Owu family no. Your Excellency, wait there, and your question. A chopper. Achimota Forest, here the Owu family bika, a binding Chia Owu family nika, na forest no and na ho. Nemo myensuo your forest said the yesi say no in our quest to benefit from the natural resource of this country. I don't think we can continue like that as a nation. A dear na wo obeye sebeya yensuo ya say no abedri yebetimi reclaim na yebetimi abodi da won oban amada chinchima. Thank you.
Please let's take Uncle Ebokwansa so we can, because I think now we've taken almost 9 or so questions. Uncle Ebokwansa, we do Sadiq from NTV, and then we will take the answers. Thank you. Please.
Mr. Vice President and incoming President, about 3 years ago, I attended your lecture at Brekusu. When I came back, my feature was simple. The headline was simple. Ebokwansa attends lecture and encounters the next president. Some of us are already convinced that you are going to be the president of Ghana. But some people out there are campaigning that you are a liar. All over the rural areas, when you go and you talk about your achievement and what you intend doing, the old folks will say, but the people came here and said you are a liar. Now you are telling us that you are, you represent the future. Please, how do you convince my elder sister in my village, Kumfe Krofo, that you should get up, an 82-year-old lady, that you should get up, drag herself and go and vote for a man who is for the future? I just want you to tell the people of Ghana who you are, why you want to be president of this republic. Thank you.
Thank you. Sadiq, NTV, and then His Excellency would now give the answers. From Sadiq. From Northern TV.
Yes. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, Tamale is one of the fastest growing cities in West Africa. Over the years, we've had perennial water challenge. Your government cancelled for the Tamale Water Project in 2020, same for Yendi and Savannah region. Your Excellency, as President of the Republic, what will be your solution to address this perennial water challenge? And what is the update on the Tamale Water Project? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. If you can take the questions and give the answers. But please let me quickly add this. As we report, kindly let's report fairly. If you are going to report that the Vice President said, if he does everything now, what would he do when he becomes president? Please add the laughing emoji and then complete the statement, because that's exactly what he said. TV3, kindly correct the reportage on Facebook. Thank you. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. I think the question started with the seeds. I think that the seed industry appears to be collapsing, and we need to revamp the local seed industry. I couldn't really agree more with the whole premise of that. If that is the case, we definitely will need to revamp the local seed industry, because without the seeds, we have a real problem in terms of cultivation of various crops. So we'll have to look at that. The question, what failures that you think in this government that you would see to correct? I was thinking a little bit about that. I don't know if I mean, for one, I think that I wish we had built in, for example, we had started the gold purchase program much earlier. If we had started it in our first term of office, for example, the buffer in terms of gold reserves would have been much bigger. As I said, a few years ago, we had 8.7 tons of gold, and I think so far we are almost they've bought close to about 72 tons or so. So it's something that I wish, when I sit back and look and I say, wow, I wish we had been able to buy a bit more and start gold for oil and gold for reserves much earlier. But as I said, the crisis is what really made us to get into these policies. Of course, I also wish that we had, even though we built more school infrastructure than any government, I believe that we've still had challenges with the senior high school in terms of infrastructure. And I wish we had completed a bit more in terms of the accommodation, dining hall, and so on. But this is one of the reasons why I want us to move a lot of the government expenditure away from government to the private sector. This is a major policy that we are coming up with, that we want to engage the private sector in a lot of expenditure that government normally will put on the budget. And a lot of infrastructure is part of what government puts on the budget. And places like roads, and you tend to see a lot of uncompleted buildings. But if you go to places like Legon or Tech, most of the accommodation, the hostels, is provided by the private sector. And all we do is rent it and pay. And I believe that we can have that model where the private sector is engaged to build a lot of infrastructure, and will pay them rent or lease it or whatever over time. So I believe that will give a lot of fiscal space, but also allow us to complete all of these buildings and so on. But this is where I want to take Ghana in the next session, that we should move more towards the private sector provision of a lot of this, and that will really bring down the fiscal burden on government in providing some of these. The Cape Coast Airport, what is the overriding consideration? Well, I think that if you look at tourism, it's got to be one of the big considerations for Cape Coast. And that could provide us, of course, some people say, well, you are also expanding the road. That is fine, but some people want to fly directly to Cape Coast. I think they will have that opportunity to do so. Parents, it's an educational hub, and so on. From Tamale can come straight to Cape Coast, and other things. So I think that there is a rationale, and we should give Cape Coast. It's the feasibility study is suggesting that the location will really be between Cape Coast and Takoradi because of land space issues. But I think there's justification for that. Inner Ring Road for Kumasi, Santasi, and Hojo, and airport interchanges. Napo, I'll leave you to handle that portfolio. And it will be your responsibility to make sure. So I'll tell the Kumasi people to hold you if it's not done. I think that the issue that has been raised, I don't know if it was Andy or Larry who raised it, that corruption, that we've not talked about corruption in the manifesto. In fact, we have, and I did make the point when I delivered my speech at the manifesto launch, that, for me, the way we have looked at fighting corruption, we're looking at, as I said during the manifesto launch, we have killed people for corruption, we've jailed people, we've passed several laws. In fact, since we have been in office, we have passed many laws. We've passed the Right to Information Act that basically brings more transparency. The Witness Protection Act we've passed. The Criminal Offense Amendment Act 2020 was also passed. The Anti-Money Laundering Act 2020. They also increased budgetary allocations to the Audit Service, to SHRAJ, NCCE. We also set up the Office of the Special Prosecutor. So all of these things are policies that we've implemented. But I make the point that when it comes to corruption, I believe that we should stop corruption ex ante. That is before it happens, rather than deal with it ex post after it happens. That we should look at, and this is why I believe that digitalization holds the key to dealing with corruption. And why do I say so? When I look at the impact of the Ghana card on the public sector payroll, it gives me a lot of confidence that we are on the right path to deal with corruption ex ante. The Ghana card provides unique identity backed by fingerprints for every adult Ghanaian so far. We've issued 18 million Ghana cards. And so when we look at SNIT, for example, when they went through their pensioner payroll and tried to make sure that everybody had a unique identity on the payroll, they found out 29,000 ghost pensions just because of the Ghana card. And that saved SNIT almost 400 million Ghana cedis from the 29,000. National Service Secretariat found 44,000 ghost service personnel, savings of over 350 million. And using digitalization in the Ghana card, we've been able to eliminate all ghost workers on the Controller and Accountant General payroll. And that is a major advancement in the fight against corruption, because these are things that have been there for a very, very long time. But digitalization is helping us to deal with it. And when you come to the area of the tax, domestic revenue mobilization and people's compliance with tax laws and all of that, when we came into office, only 4% of the, adult population of Ghana had tax identification numbers. Only 4% had tax identification numbers. So we made the decision. I said, look, why don't you make the Ghana card number the tax identification number? Suddenly, once we did that, suddenly 85% of adults in Ghana suddenly have tax identification number. So we can tell going forward who has filed, who hasn't filed, where they live, and so on. We tackled corruption, passport office with digitalization. And since we digitalized operations at the passport office, revenues have gone up almost ninefold at the passport office. Ninefold. Same with DVLA, digitalizing DVLA. We've seen significant increase in revenue. When we digitalize ECG, and ECG no longer collects cash for payment of electricity, you've seen revenue collections go up from 450 million Ghana cedis to 1.2 billion Ghana cedis, just by digitalization. You are looking at paperless ports and the way clearing goods at the ports have gone so far. Everybody can attest that you have been able to see a reduction in corruption. The Ghana.gov platform that we have implemented, by the way, you almost about 99% of all MMDAs are on the Ghana.gov platform. And that means that payments to government and are largely not leaking. The Ghana.gov is collecting about 200 billion Ghana cedis on the platform a year. And a lot of this would have normally gone through cash, and then we would have had leakages. What we want to do moving forward with fighting corruption is my proposal in the manifesto that our government must become a blockchain government. A blockchain government, which means that we operate on the basis that all transactions that you do within the government space are locked in, cannot be changed, are traceable. Even if it is 100 years, they are all traceable. So you cannot go and change any things within the government space. And that is where we need to go. So far, UAE wants to be the world's first blockchain government. They are on course. Ghana wants to be the world's second blockchain government. With that, I think once everything is transparent in all your transactions, there should be a deterrence for corruption in this context. So I want us to move into blockchain, and it will also be done. Just like Estonia, I also want all our databases to be interoperable. And that is work that is going on now. And I believe that either later this year or next year, we will have across all of the government space, all data between one institution and the other will be interoperable, so that we'll see and there will be more transparency. In addition, I have made the statement that I want us to enact a Corrupt Practices Act to consolidate all the anti-corruption related legislation and offenses that are currently scattered across several pieces of legislation, so that we have an omnibus body of provisions offering anti-corruption institutions a harmonized reference point to draw their mandate. I also want us to continue the process of restructuring the public sector and internal audit function. I want us to review Article 286 of the Constitution and the relevant legislation on assets and liabilities declaration. I want to expand the asset declarations by public office holders to include, among others, senior staff and heads of regulatory and public institutions which were not previously covered. And I also want to require that asset declarations be made or updated every 2 years instead of every 4 years. I want to place limits on foreign official travel by ministers, CEOs, and civil servants, as well as annually publish official travels undertaken, and also annually publish the list of all beneficiaries of public scholarships. So that is one area in terms of the corruption fight that is in the manifesto. Maybe it must have skipped some people, but it is there. I think it is Andy who was asking the question that, all promises are about integrity and trust, and the fact that real hardships exist, and how would people trust that I will be able to work on the hardships. I think that, the issue has to really be about what have you done? I mean, what is your track record on these issues of social intervention? Right? What have we done to relieve hardships? I think, frankly, the MPP, whether it's President Kufuor's government or President Akufo-Addo's government, has a solid record when it comes to social interventions to deal with hardships. The record is very, very solid, whether you're talking in education with capitation grants, or the increase in payments to persons with disabilities, which went up by 50%, or free SHS, or free TVET, or increased absorption of BC and WACC examination fees, and so on. The free water during COVID and all of that. The social interventions are very, very massive, actually. The issue with my opponent, who is the former president, is that he cannot point to one social intervention, one, that he can point to, that this is how notwithstanding all that has gone on when I was president, I was able to do this to relieve the suffering of our people. There's just not one. There's no one social intervention. So that is the issue. I believe that if you look at our promises, as I said, the 2016 manifesto, we've done about 83%, and 80% of the 2020 manifesto fulfilled about 80%. So we have more credibility. And I think the people of Ghana can trust us. When it comes to dealing with hardships, we are always front and center, whether it's providing free dialysis or sickle cell or childhood cancer. We're always thinking about it. And for me personally, I always worry about the poor and the vulnerable. And this is why I am a patron, for example, of the Lepers Aid Ghana, and also for the Mother Teresa's Soup Kitchen in Accra. I'm also a patron there because I want to help people who are vulnerable, and that's where my heart really is. So I think we can do a whole. Then you have, I think it's Evans, who protecting Ghanaian cultural values and so on. I think that is very, very important. He asked whether the bill, when it comes, I will sign it. I mean, the bill is before the Supreme Court right now, and I think once the Supreme Court brings it, I think there are certain challenges that have been made to it, to say that it is not consistent with the Constitution or whatever. But of course, we will wait for it to come, and once it's out of the Supreme Court and they declare it as constitutional, I believe that signing is automatic. There shouldn't be any issue. No ifs and no buts. Bamu yada. I think that there is the issue of protecting our water bodies, and I think that first of all, restoration of our forests. We've undertaken to target about 30,000 hectares of degraded areas for reforestation and plantation, and also establishing 1,000-hectare bamboo and rattan plantations annually for watershed protection, and also providing tree seedlings and plantain stackers in the National Reforestation and Plantation Program. I've also talked about small-scale mining and how we want to reduce the practice of galamsey indiscriminate digging by using data from the Geological Survey Department to direct the miners into particular community mining schemes, and sort of using mercury-free gold catcher machine technology to help them extract the gold without destroying the water bodies. We also want to preserve our water resources by vigorously protecting both the surface and underground sources by enforcing the provisions of the water use regulations, and protecting transborder water sources of the Volta River in particular. We need to effectively manage all these water basins. I think it's very, very important that we do so. I think that I don't know if it was Ebokwansa who was asking the question.
He's addressed it. What exactly about
Achimota Forest? Yeah, he talked about the Owu family, that they should. He's saying that, you know, whatever we can do to pay off the Owu family and preserve the forest, we should do. I'm inclined to agree with you on that.
It was a suggestion.
It was a suggestion, yeah.
Yes, it wasn't a question.
No, it wasn't.
Yes.
It was a suggestion that if we can preserve the forest without getting it chopped down and all of that, I think makes...
Thank you, Excellency. Umaru Sanders, about the Fulani discrimination, and also the issue of you speaking only on digitalization and no longer in the economy.
Yeah, I think we're coming to that. Let me see. Yeah, okay. Let me take this question. I wrote it, but I can't seem to see it. But I mean, the issue of my in-laws. My in-laws feeling discriminated against. I will take very strong exception to that. As president, and even as vice president, I don't think I want to see my in-laws discriminated against. So Marusanda, tell them that we are going to fight with them to make sure that discrimination doesn't take place. Then also, you talked about digitalization, my focus on digitalization, and that the people think that I've run away from economics, and economics has gone over me, and so I have gone to digitalization. I think digitalization has gone over them. You know, they have no. It's very strange, you know, that the people cannot see the nexus between digitalization and the economy. And it just doesn't make sense. You know, when I spent a year at Oxford University in 2009 as a researcher in the economics department, I wrote a book on monetary policy and financial sector reform. And I made a point in the book, this was in 2010, this is 14 years ago, before I became vice president. I made the point that Africa needs to go digital because the global economy is going digital. And if countries stay behind, they will miss out on the fourth industrial revolution as we missed out on the other revolutions. And there's a good reason, because the digitalization allows us to formalize our economy. Informal economies are very difficult to manage. And so if you want systematic, management of an economy based on data and based on systems, the fourth industrial revolution is a data-based revolution. If you have an economy that doesn't have data and systems, you can't do much. Your entry into the fourth industrial revolution, your ticket to entry is a digital identity. And as I've already said, that is the first thing. If by issuing the Ghana card, you have a digital identity. You know your population. Today, when a child is born in Ghana, right, at the point of weigh-in, they give the child a Ghana card ID as well as a birth certificate ID. We are the first country in Africa to get this done. You are getting these two IDs. So, and in not long, we are going to see NIA is going to go to all the schools and issue all the children with Ghana card IDs. So we will have a complete database. And they've done the pilot, so I expect them to start before the end of this year. You'll have a complete database of the whole country. Everybody is accounted for. If a child is not in school, you will know, because they will not be in the school database, but they would have been born. You can only manage an economy when you have the data on the people, properly. So I think that the digitalization allows us to do so. From independence to 2016, only 4% of our people had tax identification numbers. Only 4%. But by making the Ghana card ID, that we've been able to solve that problem, and therefore we have 85% in there. How do we get everybody with a bank account? You go through mobile money interoperability. You get the digital framework working. And then suddenly Ghana is the #1 country in terms of financial inclusion. We've been working at this matter since independence. But Ghana is 100% access to financial inclusion. The only country in Africa with 100% access to financial inclusion. This is economics. When you talk about financial inclusion, you are talking about economics. Look at the savings that people are making, just staying at home and paying their electricity bill, or renewing their national health insurance, or buying something on the internet or whatever. Just, you are expanding economic possibilities when you move in this direction and so on. So when you are talking about moving away from economics, no, in fact, any economy who doesn't digitalize will be left behind. And so I believe right now, what we are doing right now in Ghana, we are really at the forefront of the digital economy in Africa. We are at the forefront of the digital economy. What we are doing right now, many countries are not able to do. Many countries will take a much longer time to do. I was telling somebody, even in the UK, they don't have digital ID cards. Tony Blair was proposing to Steinmeier that they should move to issue digital IDs. They don't have digital IDs in the United States. They are now talking about doing digital identity in the United States. The EU has asked all their countries to make sure they issue digital IDs by 2030. How do you manage an economy without address systems, addresses? If you go to the UK, US, Canada, and you collapse their address system today, those economies will collapse just because they don't have addresses. We had to address that problem. For 60 years of independence, we didn't have a solution. We were going piecemeal. But by just bringing in the Ghana Post GPS and moving to a digital property address system, Ghana solved that problem just like that. And that has economic repercussions. You look at Ghana.gov, all these people on one platform, look at the efficiency and so many problems that we've lived with since independence. So many problems since independence. We have been able to solve them because of digitalization. And this is now going to give us the foundation to really grow jobs and the businesses in this country. That is where we are going. So people who don't understand digitalization or need to, think through some of these things. This is where the world is going. And I am just, at the forefront in terms of policy of moving this in this country. And that is why some people don't understand. And then I think Ebukwansa was talking about people calling me a liar, and then you go, and that is I said to someone, well, at least I'm not called a murderer as my boss was called, or I'm not called a drug dealer, or even I'm not called government official one. But why do these things arise? Fundamentally, I believe that Ghana can do exactly what is happening in the developed world, in the advanced countries. I believe it is possible for us to leapfrog technology. And for us to do this, we must have this mindset of possibilities. That's why I'm saying it is possible. We are always, timid in trying to do things that are not even done in the advanced countries. We think because it's not been done in the advanced countries, we shouldn't even try. But we can leapfrog them in many areas. But if you have an impossibility mindset, which seems to have been pervasive in the NDC mindset, everything you want to do, they say it's not possible. But if you have that, your development is limited. But when other countries are going to Mars, why would you think earthly things are not possible? But many of the things that I am trying to do in the policy space are a little futuristic in nature. Many people don't seem to usually understand them at the time when I start talking about them. They immediately come and say, oh, well, he's lying. But you remember when I talked about drones coming into Ghana, what did they say? That I was lying, that the drones are coming to take pictures of naked women in their bathrooms. That was the response about drones. And when I said Ghana was the world's largest medical drone delivery service, they said, he's lying, it's not true. When we talked about digital property address system, they said he was lying. This is not this thing. When I said that mobile money interoperability, Ghana was the first in Africa to do mobile money interoperability between bank accounts and the Momo account that we have done. They said I was lying, but usually after they say I'm lying, when I'm proven right, they don't come back to say I was right. When I said that you could use the Ghana card to travel from outside Ghana into Ghana, they said I was lying. Today, people are using it and traveling very easily. When I said we're going to build hostels for Kayaye, they said I was lying. And then we've built the hostels, they've not said anything. When I said we will restore teacher training allowances, they said I was lying. When I talked about the rent advance loans so that people will not have to pay rent advance through the National Rental Assistance Scheme, they said I was lying. Free SHS, when we talked about it, they said it was 419. Agenda 111, when I mooted this idea about Agenda 111 and we announced it, they said it was a lie, it was not feasible. The digital, the Zongo Development Fund similarly, and when I talked about credit scoring, was not in existence. It wasn't seen as true, you know. So there's a pattern that is going on, but I have to thank Joy FM. In June 2023, Joy FM did a report together with the African Academy for Open Source Investigations, and that report revealed that the coordinated sharing of that hashtag Bawulaya tweets by 28 accounts using copy and paste technique is an inorganic creature created by the opposition NDC to smear me. This was the finding of Joy FM, not me, that they had created these fake accounts and sharing Bawulaya tweets, and they had said that this was a deliberate attempt by the NDC to smear me. So I take it as par for the course. I have a solid record of accomplishment as Vice President. Very solid. I have, at least I can point to 33 separate policy initiatives. 33 that I have championed or initiated as Vice President. 33. My opponent cannot point to one. One, just one. Bakope. Just one. One single policy initiative as a Vice President. One. He can't. I mean, if you are serious about solving the problems of